What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown review for January 15th, 2021. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And I feel like a broken record when I say this, but SmackDown was once again a pretty good show on Friday night. It's the same song and dance every week with Raw, and then it's just an abysmal show right now. But SmackDown, not to say that every episode's a home run. I thought the Christmas episode was one of the all-around best episodes they've done in years, honestly, not just in 2020. This wasn't quite that level, but I thought overall it was a pretty good piece of business. Even the worst parts about this show, or should I say the weakest parts of SmackDown this week, were miles better than almost anything I saw on Monday's Raw, which was one of the worst shows I've seen in a while. Which is certainly saying something, considering how bad Raw has been for quite a while now. But yeah, I thought the January 15, 2021 SmackDown was pretty good overall. Kicking off the episode in no more electric fashion than the return of the Rising Sun, the old entrance music of Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura came out, interrupted Jey Uso's promo, proceeded to beat him in one-on-one action, which was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it for what it was. Nakamura going over clean, as he should have. But the real newsworthy part of this part of the show here was the fact that, as I mentioned, Nakamura bringing back his old entrance music that we have not heard on WWE TV in almost 3 years. He debuted that, the same song but with the lyrics, which was a cool song, don't get me wrong. I think it would be cooler if he meant more and he wasn't just a loser on the show. But as I talked about last week, after that stellar showing that he had in the Gauntlet, I wasn't sure if that was a one-night thing, and I'll talk about that with Cesaro later on, or if it would become, if it was merely just a small sign of what was to come in the, upcoming weeks on SmackDown, if it was the sign of something bigger to come with Shinsuke Nakamura. And after what I saw this week, not to say that he's going to become a main eventer again overnight, win the Rumble again, blah, blah, blah. He is not at all going to win the Royal Rumble, I don't think. But, I mean, maybe he could. Maybe he could. He obviously still has unfinished business with Roman Reigns, as does Daniel Bryan, among other people. But, hey, maybe Nakamura does win the Royal Rumble for a second time and goes on to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I think it's more likely that we get Nakamura and Roman either coming out of WrestleMania or even more likely than that at the February pay-per-view. Elimination Chamber, which I believe as of now is set to take place on February 21st. But either way, I am all fucking for babyface Nakamura coming back. And I've said this in multiple places, in audio reviews and on WrestleRant Radio and in hashtag and in articles and whatever in the last week, but it's worth repeating that Nakamura has been a heel in WWE longer than he ever was a babyface. And that's not to say that he was a bad heel. I think Nakamura, honestly, from a character standpoint, might be more interesting as a heel than he was as a face. The issue is that he was never over as a heel, because no one could ever take the guy seriously. Yes, he was a former tag team champion. Yes, he was a former 2-time United States champion. Yes, he was a former Intercontinental champion. But all that shit doesn't mean anything when those reigns meant nothing. They meant absolutely nothing. So it's really cool to see babyface Nakamura back. The theme song is back. They didn't have the violin entrance. When he interrupted Uso, they just they cut the beginning part out, and you just heard and you get the gist. You get the gist of it. So I thought that was really cool. I noticed it immediately because I'm hoping, really, please bring back the theme song. After last week's showing, we got that here. So I thought that was really cool. It's merely the first or second step. I guess last week was the first step. This week was the second in reintroducing Nakamura as a babyface, turning him back into a full-fledged face, which is what he should be. The guy is a natural babyface. People want to cheer this guy. I know we have no crowds right now to sing along with the song, which sucks. Maybe they could pipe that in. I don't know. But I thought this was a great way to kick off the show. A good match. But more importantly, babyface Nakamura is back. And more importantly than that, the Rising Sun is back as well. He even tweeted about it. He seemed very excited about that on Twitter during SmackDown last night. So we go from that to one of the weaker parts of SmackDown on Friday, that being Natalya versus Liv Morgan. So they're clearly continuing this feud between the Riot Squad and the duo of Natalya and Tamina, who I guess are the newest addition to the women's tag team division. Who the fuck could possibly care at this point? Natalya's had so many alliances over the course of her career in WWE, and tag team partners. I mean, in the last couple of years alone, I'm not even talking about Tyson Kidd and Cesaro from 5-6 years ago. In the last few years alone, she's had alliances and teams with Ronda Rousey for the year that Ronda Rousey was around, now Tamina, And even just recently as Lana from last year. They were teaming for a time too over the summer over on the Raw brand. She was aligned, I think, with Carmella and Tamina. So her and Tamina have some history. They were aligned. I don't know what they were calling themselves, but they were supposed to be like the new dominant faction on SmackDown in the women's division until they weren't, and it quickly fizzled out back in, I think, 2017. So she's had a lot of tag team partners, a lot of allies and, managers and stuff like that. And she is never more interesting than she was before. She just remains this part of the show that I just could not give two fucks about. Every time I hear that goddamn music, I just want to tune out and not tune back in until after it's over. The match was fine, which coincidentally, not coincidentally, but interestingly enough, this was a WrestleMania rematch, because if you forget, Natalya and Liv Morgan, which you probably did, Natalya and Liv Morgan had a match on the WrestleMania 36 kickoff show last year. For no real rhyme or reason whatsoever, but Liv Morgan won that one, Natalya wins here after inadvertent interference from Billie Kay. And that was probably the best part about this whole thing. I really don't care about this feud. It's nice they have an additional story in the women's division, in addition to the Sasha Carmella stuff and Bianca and Bayley. Sasha and Carmella did interact on the show backstage. I might as well just mention this now before I forget. Sasha said, "I'll give Carmella another shot at this championship as long as I get a shot at you first," referencing the guy that's been associating himself with Carmella in recent weeks. Renegal or something like that. So maybe that match will be added to next week's SmackDown before the Rumble in 2 weeks. Maybe it takes place in 2 weeks right before the pay-per-view. I don't know. But I assume you get Sasha and Carmella at the Rumble pay-per-view itself. They interviewed the Street Profits, and they talked about their loss of the SmackDown Tag Team titles. But yeah, Natalya beat Liv Morgan here in a fine match. Billie Kay dressing up as like a pop, what is that? A punk rock, not pop. I was going to say pop rock, which makes no sense. Punk rock, very similar to the Riot Squad. Having that getup I thought was really cool. So I think Billie Kay is a very entertaining character. In the ring, she's just not very good at all. But with stuff like this, I think she's entertaining. So it's cool they found a right role for her on the show. And the fact that she's more relevant than Peyton Royce has been since the Iconics broke up is just, it's the beauty of SmackDown, really. Because there's, not really, just because there's some people on SmackDown, they aren't doing jack shit with like Kalisto and I don't know where the fuck Murphy is or Aleister Black and people like that. So it's not just the Raw and SmackDown thing, but for whatever reason, Billie Kay has been way more entertaining than Peyton Royce was, or currently is over on Raw, so take that for what it's worth. But yeah, Natalya wins here. We had Rey Mysterio versus King Corbin, so like I mentioned, Murphy has been persona non grata for like well over a month now. I know the Mysterios were feuding with Corbin and the Knights of the Corbin Table, whatever the fuck they were calling them. I don't think they came out with him here. I think he came out by himself, which was interesting. I don't know why, but he came out on his own. Rey only came out with Dominic, and Dominic sat in on commentary. So there was no Aaliyah, there was no Murphy. Then I'm glad. Listen, I love Murphy. He should be off doing his own thing. Following the Seth Rollins feud, he should have beaten Rollins, and maybe not immediately enter the Intercontinental title picture, just because that's kind of crowded right now, and he was never going to win the championship. Big E, I think, was always destined to take that belt from Sami Zayn. They could have done more with him, though. I mean, the fact that he has not appeared on the show in a month, he might as well have disappeared at the same time that Rollins did, and give him some time off too, just because it really amounted to absolutely nothing. And I'm glad he did beat Rollins, but what does it mean 3 months later? Nothing. So they had Corbin and Mysterio here. I want to think these two guys can have great chemistry. Mysterio is a smaller guy. Corbin works well with the smaller guys. I wanted to like this, and it really wasn't that bad of a match. It was a fine match. My only issue with this was that it meant, first of all, there were no stakes. It meant nothing. But it's just purely filler. I mean, they're clearly just trying to kill time with these guys and kill television time before the Rumble. So the match went 5 minutes. The end of days to Mysterio was the best part about it. He kind of roughed up Dominic at ringside, did Corbin, not Rey's, not a abusive father. And that was it. Again, there was no Knights, there was no Aaliyah and Murphy, which is, hey, perfectly fine by me. I hated that whole Aaliyah and Murphy bullshit, but I'm not really sure where they're going with this. What's next for these two? I like Corbin. He's got to ditch the fucking king shit. It's just beyond terrible at this point. Maybe Rey and Dominic can become a tag team as opposed to focusing on the single stuff. I don't know, but this wasn't bad. It was enjoyable to a certain extent. It just was pure filler, if nothing else. So we then had the premiere of Ding Dong Hello with Bayley, like her whole catchphrase that she's been doing since she went heel. It's a new talk show. It reminded me a lot of The Waiting Room with Britt Baker, and not just because, they're both the role model, and because They have the door to come into the segment, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, it just gave me waiting rooms vibes. And that's not to say the waiting room is the greatest talk show segment in wrestling right now. It started off very rough. And some segments are better than others. They did the waiting room on Dynamite this week and it fucking sucked. So not every installment of that show is great either. This was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I was somewhere in the middle of this. I was expecting to hate it. The set was goofy, but hey, Bayley has improved immensely on the mic since she went heel about a year and a half ago. So giving her own talk show, assuming this sticks, and it may not, it may have just been a one-off thing, I honestly might be okay with that. The only problem is that we have so many fucking talk shows as it is, between the Moment of Bliss, you have Ms. TV, you have the Dirt Sheet, all this other fucking shit. I feel like we are in talk show overload. And thankfully, all that stuff is over on Raw. We have the Kevin Owens show as well on SmackDown. So I don't mind this. I didn't love it. It did what it set out to do in building towards Bayley and Bianca 2 next week on SmackDown. So it did succeed in that respect. We had the match of the week, in my opinion, up next between Daniel Bryan and Cesaro. Not just the match of the night, the match of the week. That's how good this one was. And I'm talking purely WWE. I forgot what happened on Dynamite. So it might not be the match of the week overall in wrestling, but as far as WWE is concerned, I thought this was the best match all week. And these two never fail to work well together. They've had great chemistry dating back to their first few matches in the company in 2013, 2012, 2014. So the fact this was as good as it was does not surprise me in the slightest. I thought this was a great match. Cesaro killing it, Bryan killing it. So this was a very fun match. I assumed it was a case of Bryan beating Nakamura's tag team partner to get back at Nakamura, kind of, for Nakamura beating him last week. You give Bryan a win to bounce back, but that wasn't the case. In fact, Cesaro beat Bryan clean with a neutralizer in the middle of the ring. The first meaningful singles win for Cesaro in God knows how fucking long. Maybe 2 or 3 years? Like, it's been a long time. He's been a part of a tag team now for like 2 or 3 years. So this was his first big win in a very long time. And it was really cool to see. I would have never expected Cesaro to beat Daniel Bryan right before Bryan is assumingly about to win the Rumble. Maybe Bryan wins the Rumble and then Cesaro says, hey, I beat you. I want a match with you for your title shot. I don't know. Maybe this was just a case of Cesaro, or rather Bryan being generous and saying, hey, I want to lose to Cesaro. Because Bryan, we're all aware, is a very big Cesaro fan, as we all are. So maybe he just wanted to do the honors for him. I don't know. Bryan, I know, is very keen on making new stars. If this is the sign, again, of bigger and better things, a lot like Nakamura, and I don't know if they're turning Cesaro face, but just giving him some sort of a meaningful push on his own, then I congratulate them. Kudos to WWE for finally realizing what they have in Cesaro. That's the problem, though. He's been here for almost exactly a decade. He's been on the main roster for 9 years in 2021. Why now will they finally realize that this guy is as good as he is? I feel like this is just a one-off where he beats Bryan, maybe Bryan gets his win back next week, or whatever, and it's quickly forgotten about. I mean, hey, fuck, Murphy beat Rollins a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown. That was also quickly forgotten about. So I have very little faith this will amount to anything, but as a one-night thing, it was really cool to see, and it was a great match to boot. Apollo Crews and Sami Zayn had a match, and kind of a pseudo number one contenders match. Apollo Crews will be facing Big E next week for the Intercontinental Championship. So this wasn't announced as a number one contenders match, but it kind of sort of was. It was a good match. It only lasted a few minutes, but it was more storyline driven. Sami attempted to roll up Apollo for the victory. The referee saw it. Then Apollo rolled up by holding the tights, by the way. Apollo then held the tights on Sami to win the match, and the referee didn't catch that. So it succeeded in a few different respects here. One, we get Apollo Crews and Big E one more time next week for the Intercontinental Championship, which should be a lot of fun. Two, it furthers the Apollo Crews heel turn, which has to be where we're headed with this. He comes off very heelish at this point. And three, Sami Zayn can continue to claim there's a conspiracy against him with the referee not seeing that Crews cheated. So I thought it was exactly what it needed to be, and it, again, was successful on several fronts here. We get to the main event segment, the Universal Championship contract signing for the Royal Rumble between what was supposed to be Roman Reigns and Adam Pearce. This ended up exactly as you would expect it to, but that's not to say it was a bad segment. This was enjoyable for what it was. But what happened was Adam Pearce had Roman sign the contract. It says in the contract, card subject to change. And he pretended to feign his injury on the way up the ramp, so he pretended, I'm hurt, I can't go. So out comes Kevin Owens, replaced announced as Adam Pearce's replacement against Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. So, yeah, that's what it is. And it's not only just Owens and Reigns again at the Rumble, it's a last man standing match for the Universal Championship, which is cool. So, again, the segment was solid. Roman, Heyman, Uso all doing their roles remarkably well. I know people were looking for... I actually saw more positive feedback than I thought I would regarding Reigns and Pearce at the Rumble. I had no interest in it, not because I don't think Adam Pearce, he hasn't wrestled in years. I think he could, bust out a good match if he wanted to. The problem was that they never actually acknowledged that Pearce used to be a wrestler. In WWE canon, I don't think they actually even, look at him as a wrestler. He's just merely an authority figure. So people expecting, they're going to make this video package playing up his former NWA title win. They don't give a fuck. This company doesn't care. Adam Pearce is no different than Eric Bischoff, Eric Bischoff, I guess, even wrestled a few matches on WWE and WCW TV. Adam Pearce has never done that. So it would have just been Roman going in there, playing with him for a little while, and then beating him. I have no interest in seeing that. If it's the right person, and it's a story that makes sense, then yeah. But Pearce and Roman have not had this long-established feud dating back months. It really just started a week or two ago. So I think Kevin Owens getting the shot instead makes perfect sense. Owens, if he loses, and he should, he doesn't have to get pinned. Maybe someone costs Kevin Owens the win. I don't know. Hey, maybe he wins, then he loses the belt right back to Roman to the next pay-per-view. I don't know. After 3 matches, I would have this be it, though. I would just end it here and have Roman win, and then move on to WrestleMania with him. I don't know where you go with Kevin Owens from there. Would you turn him heel? I don't think so, at least not yet. Maybe you can do him and Daniel Bryan. Again, I'm not sure. I don't really know what you do with Kevin Owens post-Rumble, but I guess we'll worry about that when we get to it. I think it makes more sense for him to be facing Roman at the pay-per-view as opposed to entering like the Royal Rumble match, and he's just one of 30 guys with no story. With a very minimal story when we know he's not going to win. So I thought this was good. Overall, I thought it was a very enjoyable show. The only 2 things I didn't really care for, I kind of cared for Corbin and Mysterio, but it just wasn't what it should have been, and just, it felt like filler. And then Liv Morgan and Natalya was what I thought it would be. Not to say it was bad. It was a perfectly fine match. I just don't give a fuck about anything involving Natalya or Tamina. They're just terrible in different ways. But overall, I give the show a thumbs up. I enjoyed SmackDown for January 15, 2021. More than I can say, honestly, for Raw, without, that kind of goes without saying. But hopefully they can continue this strong streak of shows into the new year and continue to produce some strong SmackDowns in 2021. So check out all my other SmackDown reviews here on the channel in the description box down below in the playlist entitled SmackDown Reviews. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and just be sure to check back every single Saturday for more audio reviews of Friday Night SmackDown. If you haven't already from this past week, check out my exclusive interviews with Fandango from NXT that went up on Wednesday, and also my exclusive interview with AJ Styles that went up on Friday, both here on the channel and on Bleacher Report. The Fandango one is up on dailyddt.com, talking about AJ's Untold, coming out tomorrow on the WWE Network, and because I've already seen it, that review should be up literally as soon as the doc drops at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the network, so look forward to that tomorrow morning. But we also have a Talking Smack review up right now here on the channel too, so check that out as well. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.